Tim, do you want to start us off?
Who?
You? I mean, it could
Me?
be me, but it's fine.
I can just announce, start the introductions. Oh, are we live? We're
Yes,
live. Welcome to the weekly dev meeting. Today is, at least where I am, it is October 28th. And we're just coming off the Backdrop Live. And let's start out with our usual, we are streaming this meeting. So if you care to join us, keep that in mind. You can mute and block yourself. My name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. And I'm going to pass it off to Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm a backend developer in Las Vegas, Nevada. And yeah, I'm excited to work on the reference module and maybe some improvements to the color module and theme settings. Greg?
Hi, Greg. Come to you from Greece. Just excited about anything related to Backdrop and be here to help any way I can. And I'll pass it on to Jen.
I'm Jen Lampton, joining from Oakland, California. I build websites with Backdrop, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new features we come up with. Let's see, Justin, are you around?
Hey, I'm Justin Christopherson. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I'm just contributing to infrastructure things when they're needed.
Great. So let's see, before we get into today's agenda, Arena was here in the last meeting. I was hoping she might stick around long enough for us to thank her for contributing layouts. I know for the project that she was working on, she needed a set of Backdrop layouts that had like the collapsible sidebars where the content region expanded to fill the space. And so she created the layouts that she needed for her site and is working on contributing them back, which is great. In the last few weeks, we've had one new release of a contributed project, and it was Pirate Filter, which was a live port that almost got done during Backdrop Live, but we wrapped it up and it's got a release out. So if anyone who wants their website to be translated into pirate speak, that is now available. We don't have any issues in the forum this week because last week was Backdrop Live, so we didn't create a forum post asking if anyone had anything they wanted to share. But if anyone here has anything they want to talk about, we could definitely talk about that now. We usually include bug fixes that we think are important enough that they should be at the top of our radar, and then new features that people are working on for the next version of Backdrop. I don't know if anyone has any bug fixes they're working on, but for the last 3 weeks now, I think, we've been reviewing a list of features that had been voted on at various points in time. I think maybe there was one official poll that was open, and then I don't know if it stayed open over time, but we have a number of people who voted for specific features, and we recently revisited those to analyze how big a task it would be in order to accomplish and how much impact it would have on Backdrop if that feature went into core. And so now that we've evaluated all of that, all those individual issues, we were hoping to spend some time looking at the work and the impact and figure out things that we might really want to see in the next version of Backdrop Core. So I don't know, Tim, you had some that you thought you wanted to talk about. I don't know if it's worth going through the whole list or if we should just focus on the ones that we think would be great.
Right. I would recommend that what we do is just have a sort of an open discussion on, and maybe let each one of us pick what we think that, we'd really like to see in the next release, and just see if we have any themes there, or maybe we each of us pick 2 or 3. I kind of like that. It's just a chance to sort of see if we're coalescing around any particular issues. Certainly, if anybody is already advocating for one, I think they should mention it. And maybe we should just remind folks that one of the ways you can help get an issue into core is by advocating for it in these meetings, which basically means just help keep it on track. You don't have to write the PR to solve it. You just need to help keep it on the agenda, maybe update the issue queue, identify what the next steps are, and just help it move forward in that way. That can be a very effective tool to getting an issue into core. And here's a great, if you're looking for something to advocate for, this is a great list to start with.
So I have taken the list of issues that we've been talking about over the last few months or few weeks and dropped it into a spreadsheet so that we can like sort on those columns. So if we wanted to see lowest impact, highest impact, or lowest effort, something like that, it's in there. So I've dropped that link into today's agenda if anyone wants to see that. And I'll drop this spreadsheet into the backdrop agendas folder for future reference.
Nice.
Tim, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, based on our discussion, well, I kind of have a question. After all the discussions we've had in Backdrop Live for Joseph, who's been working on the reference module, to me, that would be a really big PR one. But I think it sounds to me like it's sort of borderline whether or not we could get that in. Well, I'm guessing for sure we could get it in the next release, but that it would be a large lift, and whether or not that's realistic. And what I'd like Joseph to think about is what we could do as a community to sort of help make that possible, if it is. Like, would it help to have a sprint on that particular topic? Or, I don't know, is there some way we can help push that across or just one of the things I think you said recently was that one thing that would help is just people using it, and sort of hacking on it and reporting problems. And maybe we could just really hammer on that, like in every meeting. Just what could we do to help move that forward? Anyways, I'm liking that issue. I'm also liking this note. Oh, let me turn off my phone. The nodeless, pathless nodes is another one because it's fairly low work, but it's high impact visibility wise. It will change the default view of the front page. And we seem to have a lot of enthusiasm. So I think it's super realistic we almost could have got that into the last release. So it's super easy. It should be totally reasonable if we can create a consensus on aspect, things like what to call things and what I think one of the more difficult things is going to be settling on what the content should look like on the front page. Anyways, if we got those two things in, I think that would be a pretty big release just from a PR point of view. Anybody else?
I second the hidden path content type in core. There was something that resonated with me a little bit when I think it was when Steve joined that issue. He said that he didn't understand what a hidden path content type was until we made that issue. And that I think is not surprising, especially for people coming from Drupal. I think getting that feature in would be really great. I'd also love to focus on some of the user experience issues around cleaning up the text and language around explaining what a hidden path content type is, especially if we're going to start promoting it. If we can stop calling it a hidden path content type, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction. So yeah, that I think also minimal amount of effort, maximum impact is great. References, I think is going to be really hard. Joseph is not as worried about that as I am. And I think, Joseph, you've offered to spend some time on it. So I'll let you talk to that if you think that's realistic.
Sure. Yeah. I think overall we're actually really close, but so I think we could get a minimum viable product in pretty quickly. The thing I am less sure about is some of the compatibility with all the other reference modules. I think the big one, so probably the big ones are the upgrade paths and to allow people to convert from other reference modules, and then also upgrade path tests, and then I think having more field formatters, because currently we only have one. Well, we only have one form widget, and I think we only have one or two field formatters. And so having those work in addition to having, what was it? Back references. Some of the reference modules support back references, and I think that for people who need upgrading, that might be a really important feature.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like for the sites that I had in 777 and I'm now running in Backdrop with references, I am definitely missing field formatters and widget options. I feel like I'm delivering sort of something the client doesn't want because that's what I have, or I have to invest in building new things for that. And I think that for people who, if we have entity reference in core and we give them reference and reference doesn't have what they want, they're just going to use entity reference instead. And so what's the point of having reference in core? They're not going to use it.
Right.
So I would love to spend some time working on those widgets and formatters. For the upgrade path, I've started on a submodule called reference upgrade UI or something like that, that lists all of the current field types that people have that are reference convertible. So like taxonomy terms, user references, node references, and entity references, and provides a button to run the update hook on them. I think that's a good first step. I think one thing that we mentioned about would be really great if we had a reverse option, which is something that what was it, CCK had when it became fields. I haven't spent any time working on that because I haven't needed it for my projects.
Right.
But I think that could be one way where we could get a sort of a minimum viable product in without the upgrade being automatic, and give people sort of more options for what they want to do.
Yeah, I think, initially we should not, so two of the other modules that provide sort of referencing-ish behavior would be taxonomy and then the file entities. And I think we should not worry about the special behavior they need right now. We should just kind of ignore them and let them serve their special purposes and then work on integration with them later.
I think that makes sense. I think that it could even be something we slot for Backdrop 2, where it's like when you move to 2, they'll be converted to references. But for now, you can have a reference field that references a term, or you can have a term reference field that references a term. That's fine.
Mhm.
Well, Joseph, you've indicated an interest and willingness to work on this project, but beyond just leaving it all in your hands, if we were to really try to push this, what can other people do? I mean, is there a subtask that we could break out and say, I feel like this is the kind of thing that we have a couple of people in our community that if you gave a really specific, like here, we need X done to get references module in core, they would understand the value of this and maybe step up and help with that subtask. But I think there's also a perception, like if you're working on it, that it's hard for other people to just sort of jump in, right? Unless you really sort of break out a subtask and say, this is the part I need help on.
Okay. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if you want a specific feature that is supported by some reference module to be able to work in Backdrop, then please make an issue about it.
Would it?
Oh,
I'm just
you know
trying
what?
to think of. Go ahead.
Another issue that we actually don't have, or another feature we don't have an issue for at the moment is we've added support for sort of visibility conditions based on author or content type, or like references that are hard coded, and we could add those as well, like visibility conditions based on fields on reference entities. Although that's might not be a minimum viable product feature.
It would be very useful though.
Anyway, what were you going to say, Tim?
Well, I don't know. I've had a few thoughts. One of them was, would it be helpful to sort of do a demo of where it's at, and, to look at it in one of these meetings where we actually sort of looked at it and talked about what is working now and what isn't, and so that people who haven't tried it could have a better sense of how far we have to go, or is that not practical? Is there nothing really?
I think we could do that. It'd probably
Okay.
be good, just so that people know what the status is.
And just to repeat what you said before, I think is that you're just working on the contrib module, in that in this case you think we can just drop that into core. Is there no like glue code or anything that needs to be done? I mean, is it literally that easy to just drop it into core? It is?
I think so.
Jen
yeah.
is nodding her head. Okay.
Like
So-
some
What's
of
the
the,
name? What's the
it's
name?
just
Module?
called, it's reference singular.
Okay.
And it's stickied at the top of the GitHub contrib project.
So if I spun up a raw dev version of Backdrop and added that module, I would essentially have a test version of testing what it would be like in core.
Yes,
And
and
I
you
could
could,
just sort of try and break it and come up with issues. Is that helpful?
yes. And there are there are still several major bugs, so I wouldn't want to drop it into core right now, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Would it be helpful? Is there like a hit list of the bugs that exist that?
There are a couple of meta issues in the queue. One of them is like a list of blockers, and one of them is a list of features that were in other modules that aren't in this one. So yeah, there's a bunch of issues. I'm not sure it's a complete picture, but there is a lot there.
Mhm. There's also a meta issue in the core repository as well. That would actually be really helpful, is if someone could go through the 3 meta issues and kind of like condense them, or make sure that there's everything in there is actually still relevant.
I
Okay.
know that the core issue is a list of changes that are needed to core in order to support reference stuff. And I think
Mhm.
most of the blockers have been taken care of, which is why we have a contrib module, but there's some hacky workarounds in the contrib module that would be cleaner in core. So it might be worth just reviewing those and seeing what we're thinking for.
Oh, there is one core issue actually. I think it's adding a label key to the entity info. And that was so that we could determine what field on the entity was the actual label. But because we've switched everything to using classed entities, and our default entity class actually requires there to be a label method, we can just use that. And so we don't have to change the entity keys.
That's great. Was there also something about making sure that there was like a view URL? Because I feel like files broke some of our patterns
Oh,
or stuff.
hmm.
There,
I don't really remember.
I'll look into that too.
Okay. Does anybody else want to mention their favorites?
Yep. So I was back in August. I was kind of working on issue 1590, which is basically a task, not a feature, but it was deemed that it's best to be moved to a minor release, and that's the consolidation or making more consistent the more or less things via using the details form API element. That was blocked on another issue that got fixed, and it's now on core, so I could in theory start working on that. But what I'm advocating for now is issue 1040, which is basically inline form errors. And I think, like, I haven't actually started working on it, but I think we should be able to knock it out. And I have other favorites as well, but I have to pick one.
That's your favorite to work on, but is there a second one in terms of encouraging other folks to work on? I think you can mention it.
Okay, I have one that I don't know. It seems like a big undertaking. Again, I think it's one. It falls in the category of what Joseph said, that maybe someone can go through the meta issue and sort of like weed out, or clarify the technical direction or what needs to be done, and that's issue 779, which is basically the field UI redesign. We already have some child issues there. We just need to know what needs to get done first. From just
that
sorry?
might need like an initiative. Like that's a lot
Yes.
more work than an issue.
But unless we get it started, it's not gonna ever get done. And it's one that will have high impact, as mentioned before. The only thing is that this has been done in Drupal. We need just to get it right because there's certain things that do not, like UX wise, do not work ideally in Drupal. We should get it right. And some folks had very really great ideas. We even have mock-ups on how it should work. I think we can get it right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of this. Which issue is that?
So that issue that I last mentioned is 779, and it's a meta issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically converting. The way that fields are being added now is sort of like the workflow is externalizing how developers would go about it, and we want to make it more user-friendly. Basically,
sure.
getting people to select the widget first and then the data type that they will be storing after.
Yeah, that would be super high impact, but also probably super high effort. Huh?
Yeah, it could be high effort or mid, I guess. As a starting point, we should clarify what's the next step. Like, do we have a blocker? Is there an easy step that we can get out of the way that will get us closer? So yeah.
I think, what would it be? I think we'd need some kind of mapping from our field API widgets and our form API elements to be like, okay, like how can we store what widgets do we have available and how can we store them, and kind of create a mapping between those things.
That I'm not sure if it was you, but it was mentioned before, that thing about the mapping, and I think the idea was there that we should figure out if there's a way to allow both ways, like either selecting, either doing it the easy way for I don't know, first time Drupal/backdrop users to do it by selecting the widget, but also allow the current way of experienced users that want to select the data type first.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that would. Yeah.
I think you got this backwards, but yeah.
Well,
New people don't care about widgets.
Well, I think the idea is that more technical people will care about how it's stored, and less technical people care about how their form looks.
So nobody cares about widgets.
Well, the widget is how your controls how your form looks.
Right. But people who are creating content don't care what the form looks like. They only care what the content looks like. So there's are we building websites for people who want to create content? Are we building websites for people who want to create forms? We're building so this is not a simple problem, because I think if we build websites for people who make forms, which we're doing right now, we're not solving the usability problem. We're just solving the technical problem. And adding an option to choose a data type solves more of a technical problem for more of a technical people, but doesn't make the usability problem any better. But yeah, I think this is a really complicated problem because fields are complicated. And so I don't think that we can look at, I don't think this is the kind of thing, Greg, that we can identify a blocker without having a 2-hour long meeting to figure out what we want to do. And then we're okay, now that we know what we want to do, let's figure out what's between us and where we're trying to go.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this is going to end up touching basically the add a form page, the manage form page, and the manage display page all together.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how this is going to look at the end, but I do think that with both Dream Fields and Display Suite, we can steal a bunch of their ideas and make something better than what we have now.
Yeah, basically the goal is to improve the workflow. So it may even be, mock-ups of the workflow in problematic areas, sort of thing. But I think we have some of them already, or a starting point.
Point of order, Jen, I can't edit the spreadsheet. Could you make it possible for me to edit the spreadsheet? I can add some comments. So getting some advocates for these issues would be a good outcome. Phil joined us. Phil, we're just talking about priorities for the next release. And for the last couple of weeks, we've been going through a list of previously identified possible priorities and sort of rating them on how complicated they would be and what impact they would have. And right now we're sort of trying to pick a couple that we might focus on. Do you want to say anything about something, an issue you would like to see focused on for core?
I would love to see that views color icon, whatever. Maybe at least just the back end code change to where if somebody wants to change colors of a hidden field or a rewritten field in views, somebody has the ability to do that easily through their own CSS, and then we can figure out how to actually style it for the general masses later. That's I guess the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. Outside of that, no, I don't really have anything particular that's screaming at me.
Do you have an issue number? Is there an issue for that?
There is, I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay. Could you find it and share it with us?
So this is a low impact issue, but it's really low effort too. So I think it's definitely something like just the first step of making it so you can put a class on it should be really straightforward. So I think there's no reason we couldn't get
Is this on the front end for views or on the back end for views?
It's on the back end.
So you
So
can
that-
you can color code your fields.
Yeah, in an admin theme. So like if you have one that's hidden or if you have one that's rewritten or like just, a lot of fields are treated differently in views and we're having a hard time figuring out how to render them in a way that makes sense in the views UI.
Oh, yeah.
And this would give us a lot of flexibility for like trying stuff where right now it's like we don't have any markup that we can use to even try anything to start with. So
Got it.
Like,
I remember that issue now. You go ahead.
there should be two issues, one for the hidden, the other for the rewritten. 5261 is for the hidden. 5287 is for the rewritten. Kind of one of them things. I mean, I broke them out as two separate issues because it kind of sounded like they needed to be two separate issues, but they kind of go together. I think from a coding standpoint, they could both be taken care of in one issue. But yeah, that's the start of it.
Thanks. Justin, did you want to add anything here?
No, I don't have anything right now. Just following along.
Did we
Yeah.
merge the changes for the flexible layouts UI?
I don't know. Sounds familiar, like we might have, but I don't know.
the block, like the CSS for the, I don't know.
Because I just spun up the demo site, which is basically.
Oh, I don't think it's been released yet, but I think it might be.
So it's not released. Yeah, it could be that. Okay.
I think it might have been merged after the last release. I'm not sure.
That was so close. And another
Yeah.
thing, we also did that complete rewrite of the layout listing UI too, that Robert was advocating for.
Oh yeah, the one that we would split into categories for. Yeah. Okay. Was that merged?
No, these are all, I'm not sure the other one was merged either, but these were all like so close and then the release came and then I think
Yeah.
like
Plus,
we should.
these are
revisit it.
tasks, right? They're not features. They could get in anytime,
Yeah,
right?
I
Okay.
think so.
It's just I was thinking big impact, and I thought of that UI, how it's sort of like it's a big difference from what it currently is, and it's like improved UX.
So on mid-October, we merged 5149, make flexible layout UI more similar to managed blocks.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay. So I think that's been merged, but not yet released.
Jen, sorry, I missed. Which thing do you have time? Are you advocating for any specific issue this release cycle?
I have some time. I'm not currently advocating for anything this release cycle.
Because you used to advocate for 4345, which is the upgrade UI.
Yeah, but that's happening in contrib.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what Doc Wilmot is working on. Right?
Yeah,
So, okay.
yeah. So I don't know that that's worth.
Well, if we're trying to flesh things out in contrib, maybe, you know, even if it's not in core, if you helped out Doc Wilmot, that would still help us get this eventually.
I do have a question. When you guys get to I guess kind of a stopping point where I can discuss it, just let me know.
Sure, I'm not sure where we're going next. We sort of had this discussion. Did we finish with the discussion about, well, I'll just say, Joseph, I would encourage you to think, again, along the lines of what can we do to help move this forward. I think what I'm going to do is just try testing the module like in a plain vanilla site and seeing if I can get a better sense of how far it is along. But if there's again, if having a sprint on this or something would be helpful, or I don't know, whatever, let us know.
All right.
So you're still optimistic it could happen in the next release. Jen, are you any more optimistic yet, or are you still?
Well, I think I am medium optimistic. I mean, there's a lot to done. There's a lot to be done, but none of the things are super difficult. So I don't know. I could help with field formatters and field widgets if Joseph wanted to handle the core file callback URL issues or whatever.
Oh,
I
actually,
think go ahead.
one thing I did run into last time we discussed this issue, we brought up, I said that I could just take the tests from the other reference modules and convert them and then use those as our tests to begin with. But I ran into an issue where most of the other reference modules don't have tests, so I can't do that. Or
Isn't
they only have
Entity reference
Entity reference has 2 tests that it doesn't cover all. It really only covers a couple features. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, I will. I think I'm going to advocate for the hidden content or the hidden content type in core, just because I wrote the PR on it and it's something I can actually have some control over. And I will try to just sort of encourage us to keep pushing this reference module thing. But if somebody else can advocate for it, that would be great.
There's a few things that were mentioned by people in Backdrop Live that were not big features, but pet peeves, things that do not exactly work out as expected. I haven't checked the queue in the last couple of days, but one of them is 5246, and Diane mentioned that, which is the ability to clone views displays into different display plugins. And between the last time that I checked and now, had filed a pull request, and I think Laren merged something in there. So this is our TBC, it's ready to be merged. It's not a feature again, it's a task.
I feel like I would call this a feature.
Well, it's parity cross-port from views. We can call it whatever you want, but yeah.
Oh, so this already exists in Drupal 7's version of views.
It was
Yes,
ported
since
from,
May.
It was ported from Drupal 8 back to Drupal 7.
Yeah, if you feel differently, feel free to change that, because then it can't go into, because I kind of sort of agree. If you see it as a cross-port, it's a task, but if you see it as a new feature which was not present there before, then it needs to be a feature and it will need to go in 121.0. So feel free to change that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It kind
It's
of
weird.
feels,
It's like
yeah.
we're importing a cross-port, but that cross-port adds a feature. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do we categorize this?
Do you want to go ahead and do that? Switch it to a feature and then switch the milestone as well?
No, it's fine.
All right. I'll probably
We can
add that
just leave it
comment.
as is.
Yeah, I'll
To
probably
me,
add that
it-
comment.
To me,
Sorry?
it's a bug fix because it's something that should have always been there. They finally got it fixed.
Yeah.
I'm being
Yeah.
facetious.
Oh, Jen, which reminds me, hijacking. Did you get the chance to test that thing, the fix with the states with field sets?
No,
Okay,
but I can do it after this.
cool.
Bill had something else he wanted to talk about, and we're almost out of time. Should we?
Yeah, issue 5329. I asked a question, Greg. Well, actually, it looks like BW Panda just commented on it.
Which one? Can you repeat the number, please?
5329. Basically, just trying to figure out, is it a bug that needs an issue, or does it need proper documentation to explain what's going on? As of right now, there is zero documentation on this particular theme key. So I'm trying to get documentation going for the theme key, but I'm kind of stuck because I don't know what the default value should be if depending on the scenario.
Yeah, I haven't touched that in a year and a half, so I have to revisit it. So usually when I raise issues like that is either I come across an issue in d.org or someone mentions it and I add it as a to-do list. I'll have to see just to remember what triggered this. It could be something that I found at work that triggered that.
Are you looking at the right issue? This is one that Phil opened.
5329.
432. Sorry.
5329.
Yeah. Sorry. My bad.
I figured I wanted to bring it up on here to see if maybe folks who have a little bit more intimate exposure to the themes and how that API was created, if they've got any thoughts on this.
Well, this feels like a DX issue actually. So it seems a little bit wrong the way that it works now, but that's the way that it works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think though that we could add a bug fix into core that's like, if you set hidden and don't add a value, make it behave the way people expect it to behave. I mean, you're right, it's invalid syntax, but it is still really weird. So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I
So,
labeled that as a bug report, but I think
Okay.
we could get a fix in.
Okay, so it should be that if the key is not present, or if the key is present but has a null value, then, or no value basically, then it should effectively be hidden is equal to false. In the logic, it should do a hidden equals false.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
if it's invalid, my gut instinct says that, like from a developer perspective, it should be ignored at best, or
Right,
an error,
right.
Yeah,
or an error thrown.
Well, if it was ignored, then it would be shown, which is the weird thing that it's.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's if it's exists and false, then it's ignored. But if it exists and any other value, then it assumes it's true.
Yeah, because currently, if you can set it to hidden equals Greg or whatever, and then
Right. Yeah, because it's a truthy value, therefore it's true.
yeah.
Can somebody help me out understand this issue? So is this just hiding it from the UI, or you're trying to
Yeah.
hide your theme?
Yeah,
And what is the use case for this?
like if it's a base
So-
theme or something and you don't want people to enable it.
Yeah, we were talking about all the sub themes that can literally go into infinity, and it kind of hit me that if you got a sub theme of a sub theme, it's like, and I have a user that I only want them to edit that particular sub theme. I don't want them to have access to the primary theme or the secondary sub theme. That I can hide those from the UI to where they just never see it.
Got it.
So I didn't think it existed. I think it was BW Panda that actually brought it up. That he goes, no, it's in the API, it's there. So then I went and looked at the documentation. It's like, there is no documentation. We need this to be documented because it's, otherwise nobody even knows that it's a thing. And then that's when it led me into what's the default of this, which led to this issue. So
It must be documented. So there's a document I'm not sure if we copied it over, which is called writing.info files. That was in, it's a document that I'm familiar with because it mentions the conventions for the name, that it should be capitalized properly and that, and so on and so forth. And hidden is mentioned there. I'll try to find it. I'm not sure if we ported it over to our documentation and how things work. So I'm sure this value hidden equals is valid for themes and I think modules as well.
Yeah, we
and
have
layout
several.
templates as well that we hidden.
Yeah, we have layouts, profiles, modules, themes, all in core that use this, that we use in tests that are all hidden.
Yeah, so the respective documentation page in Drupal is called writing.info files. So I'm assuming that if we ported, copied, and adapted that to Backdrop, it will be called the same. So I'll try to find it for you and I'll post the link somewhere.
Okay, I do have an issue for it being added to the, I think it's the creating themes page. Yeah, backdropcms.org, creating -themes. That's where I went to try to find this information, did not see it. So,
Okay. I just found something on docs.backdropcms.org under creating modules. There's a section on info files. And if you scroll down to the bottom of that, right between that and about hooks, it talks about hidden in the defaults, or hidden equals true.
So I'm guessing if this bug is happening with themes, I have not tested it with modules, but it might be also happening with modules as well. So we may need to have it set up for the logic that if if hidden's missing, then it's, show it. But if hidden equals and there is no value, then it also needs to show it.
Okay. The documentation I pointed at was for modules, not themes. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So it looks like it's if it's there for modules, it just didn't get copied over to the themes. That themes create themes page.
I've put a link in the chat to that page that I was referring to, which lists all the properties that go into .info files, and for D7 because the respective for D8 and beyond is called writing.info.yaml files. So there's a section there, and there's a bullet point for hidden, which explains.
Yeah, we probably should have that on the themes page as well.
Yeah. But the Drupal documentation doesn't mention the what happens if you leave that blank or if you add false. It just mentions the hidden equals true thing if you want to hide it.
Yeah, so, I feel like that particular one probably needs to specify what the default is. Most of the, looking through the other info stuff, it's kind of like there is no real default, but that one, it's a Boolean, therefore it's going to have some kind of a default. And I feel like we need to specify, hey, this is the default if it's missing, or or whatever. So
yeah, and it feels that like the default should be true, right? You don't want to create a module and by default be hidden.
Correct. Yeah, the default would be hidden equals false.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I was just working with these functions on the recipes UI stuff, so I'll see if I can find where the problem is.
While we're 5 minutes over the hour, should we wrap up?
Cool.
Yeah, let's go ahead and at least wrap up the video. Does anyone have any final issues they want to share or things they want to talk about?
There's a bug fix that I think is very important, which would be 5308, which is the save button doesn't exist on theme settings forms unless you override the theme settings form.
Yeah.
And I did make a comment posting a potential solution. So yeah.
I was actually trying. Yeah, thanks. I was actually trying to find a way to do this properly. Yeah, cool. My problem with this form is that they were by inspecting form and form state, you couldn't tell if the form is empty. That's my problem.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about this change, Joseph, too, because you could implement hook form alter and define a form ID and still change this form. And this wouldn't account for that scenario.
Hmm.
I just think it might be better to switch back to everything working now, and then in a follow-up issue, figure out how to solve the issue with nothing on the form.
Okay.
And we might even, I think there's a function in the issue where we checked the max input bars. There's some way that you can count like the number of element children in a form. We could even reuse that option here and say like if the number of items, like visible items on this form is 0, then remove the button.
I
Might
think
be a
that this
safe
is
way
what
to
I'm
do it.
doing, but it's not, or I've done it in my local and it's not working as expected.
It's tricky.
Yes.
Okay, well, I agree. We should focus on that one. I thought it had actually gotten in even like right after 121. It looks like it still needs codes review. So. Right, well, I'm going to stop the recording. We can hang out if you guys have more to talk to.